Hi, good evening, and welcome back to Transvox. My guest tonight is Danielle St. James. And where in the world are you, Danielle?
I am in Margate, so right next
Oh,
to the
right.
sea. I am, yeah, in Kent. I can actually see the sea from my window, which is
Can you,
lovely.
I mean, we're almost as far apart as you can possibly get. I'm near Scotland, and you're in almost in the water.
I, yeah, I'm all the way down south.
Tell us a bit about yourself then, Danielle.
I'm originally from Wales. I'm actually from
Oh,
Barry Island, if you're
really?
a Gavin and Stacey fan.
Yeah.
And I left there as an 18-year-old, and after a 2 year very hazy stint in Ibiza. I ended up in London for around 10 years, which is kind of where I built my network and my career and just yeah, spent my whole all of my 20s in London. And then about 3 years ago, I moved with my now husband and we live in Margate.
Oh, that sounds great. I like the way you call it a hazy couple of years. So there were substances being imbued that led to a little less clarity.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think the time that's passed between now and then, and also what I was up to back then was has led it to being hazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just one of the chapters that shaped where I got to today.
But it's nice to have a sort of hazy past in a way, isn't it? Because it becomes esoteric and mystical, doesn't it? And over the dawn of time, whereas, I just had to go to work, so that's really dull. Well, anyway, so you've got this esoteric background, which is absolutely brilliant. What is it that you're doing at the moment that we should know about?
I kind of wear many hats, to be honest.
Okay.
So, I am chief exec of one of the country's leading charities that supports trans people, which is called Not a Phase. I've been doing that for the last 5 years. And then, alongside that, and a few other things that I get up to, I own Zoah, which is an underwear and swimwear company that supports the needs of trans people.
Wow. Oh, well, okay. Let's unpack a bit of that then. So, where should we
Sure.
start? Let's talk Zoa because that sounds fascinating. Tell me more about that.
Okay, yeah. I guess to give you a little bit of an origin story, when back in sort of 2017, I used to split my time work-wise between London and New York. And there was this time I had to go to Washington, DC on the train, which isn't too long of a train, but it's a few hours. And I was on the way back to Manhattan, and I had a date with a police officer. I
Ooh,
remember all of the details of this story.
come on, let's
Um,
have I want all the salacious gossip.
I had a date with a police officer, and I was thinking, oh, I really want some nice underwear. I'd like to buy some nice underwear. So I'm Googling underwear for trans people, trans lingerie, this, that. And I just couldn't find anything that did not take me to a fetish website. I couldn't
Yeah.
find anything that didn't use really old school trans language, and especially sort of like transvestite language,
Yeah.
cross-dressing, all hypersexualized. And it just didn't speak to me. None of it felt authentic and at all like something that I wanted. And so I thought, God, there's got to be another option for this. And that was kind of where it all began. And I started sketching out like what I would like my underwear to look like. And that went on. I ended up having a few samples made. And one thing led to another in terms of like the reason I didn't start it yet, but I wore those samples that I'd had made and that I
Ah,
loved for 3 years. And then 2020 rolled around and everything shut down and I was kind of listless. And I was saying to my husband, like, I really want to, I don't want to go back to relying on someone else after this. I don't want to
yeah.
work for anybody else ever again.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I'm going to do. And he said, I think you should do the underwear. You wear it every day. People ask you about it and you don't do anything with it. And so I launched it back then with a really overwhelming response to the pre-sale of it. And it's just gone on from there. It started with one size, one type of underwear in 5 sizes. and now it's an entire company that does loads of different products. I released the first ever collection of tucking swimwear that made headlines a few years ago. And then within the last year, have expanded the company to now do binders and packers and packing underwear. And I'm really, really proud of it. And I actually was having this conversation earlier on today with somebody who came to my studio, where I was saying that the thing that gets overlooked for most people about their underwear is that they have the opportunity to put them on in the morning and not think about them until they take them off
Yeah.
at night. And I think with trans people, it's actually the complete opposite. And that
So, yeah.
for especially pre-op or non-op people, where no matter where you are in the spectrum of being trans, underwear is something you're really, really aware of all day.
Mm.
Whether that's because you're in pain because you're wearing something that's makeshift or bad quality, or because it may have slipped, or because you're just very aware of it.
Yeah.
And so my mission was to create products that you would put on and forget about for the rest of the day,
Yeah.
prioritizing comfort over anything else. And I think that's where we've landed.
But they're very fashionable styles. I mean, I'm just on your site now looking as we're chatting, and sorry, that's why my eyes are flicking around. So I'm just looking at different things. So it is quite an interesting thing because I'm sure many of us have done that thing where you think, I can see a problem. And then the entrepreneurial spirit obviously is live in you. And what you've done is said, well, okay, let me do something about that. And then you've created it. It seems odd that you've done this from scratch, though. Did you have a background in fashion or design or something? Or did you just literally dive in?
I didn't have a background in design at all. I knew exactly what I wanted, and I
Right.
just had to sketch it out the best I could and work with a great pattern cutter and go sample, 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 sample until I could get it right. I did have experience of working in the fashion industry, though the job that took me back and forth to New York so often, I was international ops manager for a makeup company, and I ran the teams backstage at Fashion Week all over the
Um,
world, and so I was surrounded by people that were very much of that mindset of like, if you build it, they will come. And so yeah, I was really excited about Zoa. It's like a company of products that I made for myself because I was so desperate for them, and I'm just thrilled that other people get to enjoy the thing I
yeah.
made for me.
So how, without blowing away trade secrets, so we'll talk trans femme
Do
stuff
it.
first, but obviously we want to make sure we cover the other side of the equation as well. So how do you make it so it works? Because for people who are thinking about this sort of thing,
Sure.
what's different than just buying something normal from Marks and Sparks,
Okay, yeah. So there's actually a few things that would separate me from a pair of underwear that you might pick up in Marks and Spencers.
for example?
For example, other
Yeah,
brands are available.
yeah,
Um, so when it comes to tucking, the key element to it is pressure. You need the pressure to remain flat and in place, and the other element is that, I mean, to just be quite blunt about it, that there's nothing slipping out,
yeah,
because that's where you end up with pain.
yeah.
And so what separates my underwear not only from the variety that is available in Marks and Spencers, but also from other tucking options, is that it doesn't get that pressure from a thin strap that sits on your hips. I can see a knowing nod on that
Oh
one.
yes,
That traditional gaff that kind of sits on your hip bone and just digs in, that allows you to have a flat tuck, is is so painful. And I had so much experience of feeling that it's almost like carpet burn on your hips.
mm,
Whereas what Zoa underwear does is, on almost all of the tucking products, inside the waistband is lined with silicone. So it actually gets the tension from the whole way around your body because it just stays in place.
yeah,
So the pressure of the band is actually not needed. So there's no digging in, it's just kind of stuck in place. And then in addition to this, our underwear has got the widest gusset underneath.
I'm going to ask you about that because it seems to be very different sizes, doesn't it?
Yeah, the underneath part of it, of like your undercarriage, that
Mm.
is very wide by comparison of underwear that you would find in a generic high street
Yeah.
shop. That is kind of where everything sits, is that underneath part. And so you get the pressure from the waistband that's evenly distributed, that eliminates that pain. And then you get the width of underneath of where everything is contained within one place. And then in addition to that, I have the leg cuffs elasticated. So
Ah,
there's no risk of anything falling out the side.
spilling. Mm.
Yeah, and then you end up in pain because it's cutting into a really intimate area that's super, super
Yeah.
sensitive. And anyway, I mean, look, I think back to being like a dancer in Ibiza in 2010. There were no options for things like this. And I remember going to the hardware shop and buying electrical tape and just
Yeah.
making do with what I could in
Yeah.
order to be able to look like the other dancers. And I'm so glad that those days are over, and what I'm able to offer through the underwear on Zoa is just like an extremely comfortable version of what's available.
How do you accommodate? So for lots of so I'm a bit older than you, to say the least, and I'm probably a bit larger than you. And of course, the traditional, biological male shape, especially when you're overweight, sort of creates an overhang at the front, doesn't it? So
Mm,
how do you design for different? I'm just sorry, this is pure self-interest now. I'm having a fitting guide. How do you design something that accommodates such different shapes from the stomach region? Because of
sure.
course, do these things sit under the stomach?
If you happen to have a little look around the website, the
I have.
interesting thing is, with the briefs, I would say that they're like a hybrid of underwear and shapewear. The briefs waistband actually sits around your tummy, which
Okay.
for me is my favorite type of underwear. I love a big, robust granny knicker. I've
Mm,
always been into a big knicker. And so they actually sit over the tummy. The brief sits over the tummy.
I see.
But if you want it to sit under, then if you look at the reason the thong has a crossover waistband is because it then it channels the pressure that you would otherwise get from a thong and channels it the whole way around you. So it's not going to get again, that pressure from your hip bones and end up hurting.
Oh, I mean, it's obvious when you think about it, but there has to be a degree of science in this, doesn't there, to actually make it work? It's not something you just anybody can sit down their living room and make. So
Yeah.
obviously, this tucking swimwear is a level of expertise exponentially higher than stuff that's hidden away.
The swimwear is, I mean, look, the swimwear kind of adopted the hero features of the underwear. I The swimwear was such a huge passion point for me because
Right.
I love going to the beach. I live next to the beach. I love swimming. And I think back to like every time I would just feel like I couldn't go. Or I'd go to the beach and have to wear denim shorts in the water with a pair of
Yeah.
underwear on underneath. I used to years ago I would go to Primark and buy these seamless kind of boy short shape underwear, and I'd wear three pairs of those and then a denim pair of denim shorts on top, and then I'd go in the sea in that. That's
Yeah.
not what everybody else is doing. It was
No.
right. This is going to get quite philosophical with how passionate I feel about underwear and swimwear. I think that when you put the first thing that you put on at the beginning of the day and the thing that sits closest to you all day, if that's not designed with your needs in mind, I really believe that it's a physical reminder throughout the day that you're in a world that's not meant for you. I
Yeah.
think that it can feel like a physical oppression. And
Yeah.
I and it and the constant pain of the wrong underwear, the wrong swimwear, again, it just is a reminder of like, God, I don't feel authentic. I don't
Mm.
feel normal. And so the swimwear, I was just so thrilled to be able to give people the chance to just go to the beach, to just go on holiday and chuck on a swimming costume like I love going swimming in my local leisure centre here in Margate, and I go about 3 times a week with all the little old ladies at the start of the day. And I chuck on my Zoa swimsuit and I get in the water, and there's not once that I think, are they looking at my body to see if I'm
Mm,
trans?
mm.
I feel completely comfortable, and that is a type of freedom that I think so many of us have wanted for such a long time.
And I think sometimes, especially people who are a little bit strapped for cash, I mean, they often make compromises, don't they? And
Yeah.
rather than buying something, so what they do is they'll buy something that's not right, and then but it's cheap, and then they'll have to buy another one and another one and another one. And I think that happens a lot, doesn't it? Rather than just buying something that's specialist, it might be more expensive, but not maybe not dramatically more, looking at the prices. Um, but actually it's right, and it's also a trans business, and it's also designed for trans people, and
Mm.
it's sort of the right solution. And if you can't invest in yourself and the community, then why would you go to Marks and buy things which are pretty well the same price but just never going to work for you, really? It's sort of bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, they won't work for you for what you need them for. As a cis woman does not need to have a double width gusset with
No.
elasticated leg cuffs. Once you get wet, fabrics are always going to be a bit looser.
Yeah.
There are things are always going to shift around. If you don't have the right swimsuit, you are either going to end up with a bulge or with an overspill.
Yeah.
It's just a fact. And like you said, the price point is something that's been really difficult for me, as
Yeah, but
in from a charity CEO point of view, I always keep the community so in mind because I am so in touch with it. And I know the economical standing of so many people that are within our community. And I would never do anything to gouge people on prices, which is why in 4 years I've never increased my prices on any of the
wow.
products.
Yeah,
That does put me at a disadvantage because I order products at a minimum order quantity. So I
of
order the
course.
minimum amount of it that I can, but I do have it made by a premium manufacturer who is the same manufacturer behind Dita Von Teese, ASOS, Blue Bella, Playful Promises. It's the same manufacturing partner. So you're getting super premium product made for your body at the same price point as somewhere else. I end up the margins on it are tiny.
Yeah,
It's entirely driven by passion. It really
yeah.
is. And then in addition to that, I have run a pay it forward scheme with the company. I've done that, I want to say maybe 6 or 7 times since I launched. And I happen to have quite a good amount of followers and engagement with people outside of our community online. And a few times a year, I hope to put that following to good use. And I do the pay it forward scheme, which is when I put the call out to my entire network and
Mm,
say, I need you to either buy a pair of underwear or buy half a pair of underwear for someone that desperately needs them but can't afford them.
yeah,
And then what I will chip in for, I think last time around I did for every 3 pairs that are bought, I'll put a pair in as well,
yeah.
which eradicates the profit on it
I was going to say
anyway.
that's the end of any profit.
Yeah. But the last time we did it, we sent out like 150 pairs of tucking underwear to
Wow,
people. Like we
brilliant.
really do something with it.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's really cool. Like I get to help people in that way because I know how much of a difference this type of underwear can really make to someone's life.
yeah. So obviously, at some stage, you must have thought, whether at the beginning or halfway through or whenever, but you've obviously gone onto the other side, and you've got binders and packing underwear and packers and such like. So can you talk me through what the thinking behind those?
Sure, yeah. I mean, that actually was a development within the past year.
All right.
I yeah, I got I was contacted about 18 months ago by a government funded business growth specialist, and really cool girl who strangely happened to live 10 minutes away from me, but which we didn't know when we first started emailing. And I started working with her on like, okay, here's how I'm gonna sort of overcome the Brexit hurdles, and here how I can get into the US market and all the sort of like boring business mechanic side of things. And she came to me in around October time, the year before last, and said, "There's this grant available that I think that you would be applicable for. Have a read of it and let me know." And the grant was a government-funded initiative to make the UK an international hub of innovation. And
Oh,
so I started reading through it and I thought, there is no way in hell I'm going to get this grant,
mm,
because it was talking about like the ethics of artificial intelligence, renewable energy sources, like all of these things. And I thought, God, it's such a stretch for me to put my underwear company in the middle of this. But she said, no, I think that's why you would get it. I think that there's a big opportunity here. So I
yeah,
thought, okay, let's do the application. We filled it out, submitted it out. I completely forgot about it. And then about 6 weeks later, I I got an email to say that out of 6,000 applicants, I'd been chosen as one of the
brilliant,
50 businesses to get it was 52 businesses to get a £50,000 grant for innovation.
fantastic.
Yeah. So what I was able to do with that was say, what do I really want to do with this company next? And the main thing was like, okay, if I can apply the same way
Yeah,
of thinking of comfort above anything to products for trans women, how am I going to do that for people that wear binders and for packing underwear? What can I find out here? And so it grew from there. And I not only developed the line of products, for which is binders, packing underwear, and packers. I also funded a research paper
right.
into safety of our community and the impact that underwear has on that. And that's now in circulation.
Wow.
And then I completely rebranded and went live with a lovely campaign to launch the binders and stuff. So I neutralized the branding and stopped it being a completely feminine feeling
Yes.
brand. And yeah, it's been a big old slog of work. It's a whole year of work, and then we went live with it at the start of December, so quite
And how
recently.
did you come up with the name of Zoa? Because it's like Noah, but with a Z, isn't it?
Like Noah, but with a Z. Yeah. Zoe is actually my middle name.
Oh,
Yeah. So when I was first changing my name, this probably would have been about 12 years ago. My birth name, my middle initial was Z, and I always loved the way that it looked when I wrote my name. And
yeah.
so I went to my parents and said, I really want to keep the Z, but I don't like Zoe and I don't like Zara. So let's find something. And they helped find it. And it's got a couple of different origins. One of them, in if you go all the way back in Arabic is peaceful, and in
Oh,
Greek is woman. And I thought, peaceful woman. That
yeah, yeah.
sounds that sounds like a hope.
I thought you were going to say it was going to be Greek for underwear. That would have been just the greatest thing ever. But peaceful woman, I can get. I don't
Yeah,
see you as a peaceful woman. I think you're more of a striver and a innovator and someone that makes things happen. So, but I love that story. I think it's brilliant.
thanks. Yeah, well, look, when I was coming up with the brand name, originally I was going to call it Phoenix, and it was going to be Phoenix with an F. How
Of
quirky.
course, yeah,
Um, uh, and I had all of the samples made with that branding. And then when it came to actually launching it, I just thought, God, it's a
yeah,
bit naff, isn't it? Like it's a bit naff to go obvious like Phoenix from the ashes and the usual sort of like trans iconography. And so I tried, I couldn't think of a name. That's the long and short of it. And then in the end I thought, well, my the name I use publicly has been St. James since I was, a teenager, but it's not my legal name. And so I thought, no, nobody really knows that Zoa is my middle name anyway, so I'm just going to call it Zoa and get on with
yeah.
it.
That's great. I mean, a fantastic story. Because actually, I'm always fascinated by people's names because the fact that we choose them is something. Because I mean, if you've had a name chosen for you, you just have many, many years to get used to it. So you just get used to it. And finding a name is quite interesting because it's such an integral part of one's identity. You hear it all the time. So that's a brilliant story.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's why we end up with so many colorful names amongst
Yeah.
our community as well. My actual name is so like uninteresting. I did the really obvious thing and just added another L and E onto my birth name. It was just well, I remember when I was like 17 and I would go out in Cardiff and people would ask my name and I would tell them a different name every time I spoke to someone. And I would just wait to see how that felt when I said the name. And I'll be honest, my name was very nearly Crystal. And I'm so glad that it wasn't Crystal.
No, you don't look like a crystal.
I don't feel like a crystal.
No, no. It is
So
funny.
yeah, I'm
It is
glad that
funny
it
because
wasn't
you
Crystal.
it's just this, you grow into. I always think you grow into your name, and I chose a name that was relevant to my age group. So and it's I had a couple of goes before I came up with this one, and once I came up with this one, it was really that was it. I didn't have to think about it anymore, so it was
It's a
quite good.
great name. Has it got any sort of like links to family history or anything like that?
No,
No,
but I discovered recently that my original male name sounds quite similar to it, and I'd never put two and two together.
that's
Isn't that
nice.
isn't that weird? So
Yeah,
and
it's nice to have a link.
it was a male name I hated, but a female name I really liked. So there you go.
Oh,
You,
that's really good.
oh, and now I suspect you and I can gossip for ages, so we better not, because I'll get into trouble from our mutual friend Abby. So, tell us a bit about Not a Phase.
Sure. Okay. Look, I'm really bloody proud of Not a Phase, actually. It started as a group of us being rebellious. Actually, no, I wouldn't say rebellious. We had a cause. Um, it was in 2020. It kind of happened at exactly the same time as the COVID lockdowns, and it was
Uh,
when Liz Truss was the sorry, sorry, the dog's chewing the leg off my chair.
oh, come on, show us the dog. Let's see the
Oh, hang
dog.
on, we've got two. One
Got to
sec.
see the dog.
Right.
Fur
This
babies.
is the
Oh,
one that
right,
was
a proper
chewing.
fur baby.
This is the one that was chewing the leg off the chair, the culprit. And then
The leg chewer.
this is Pearl.
Oh, hi, Pill.
And what she lacks in limbs, she makes up for in enthusiasm.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see what you mean. Yes.
Yeah.
And I have to ask the question, is she a singer? But never mind. So that's a
It's
terrible
just
old joke. Isn't there a song which starts Pill's the singer? She stands up when she plays piano or something like that.
Oh, I'm gonna look that up. That's
Oh, for
lovely.
goodness, I've got you on a cultural reference, and I've been feeling old and not cool, and now I'm going to be cool.
Well, I love nothing more than singing at them. So yeah, I'll have a little look
Oh, you've
and
got
try
it.
and learn
Pill's
it.
the singer. I'll find out what the name is. Anyway, back to
Okay. Oh
not a
yes,
face. I'm
sorry.
so easily distracted. I told you that. So,
So yeah, we it was Liz Truss at the time was the equalities minister within the Tory government, and there were some leaked documents that came out of her office at the time that sadly have now mostly come into effect that detailed the plans of removing healthcare from young trans people and also the Single Sex Protection Act. The Single Sex Spaces Protection Act. This
yes,
effectively removing our ability to go into bathrooms and changing rooms freely. And I think the combination of what was happening with COVID alongside just the abject horror of what was happening in front of us. I remember there were calls where there were morning calls where I'd wake up and cry because I was just so scared for us and for our community and for the young people that were coming up, just paralyzed with fear of what was going on. And and it just galvanized us into saying, what can we do? And Not a Phase was originally written across a t-shirt that
yeah,
said, it's not a phase, support trans youth. And that was a fundraiser for a well-known trans youth charity. And we thought that that would be where it started and ended, but really quickly, I think with the way that people were paying attention to social justice movements that year, it just blew up really fast, and we sold thousands of these T-shirts
mhm,
all over the world, and it became a real statement. And so we donated the proceeds that had been made from the teas, and then said, okay, we've got something here. We can really do something with this. And we started surveying the community and saying, what do you need most from a charity right now? And we realized that there was just such a gap in the third sector within for our community, whereby
Mm,
there are great organizations that do phenomenal work for young people and their families. But once you get past that sort of like 18 to 20 age gap, there's not really anything there in terms of like on the ground projects and support that's well funded and nationwide. There's nothing
mm,
really there. And so that's what we became. We really set our sights on a brighter future for the community, and it just blew up really quickly. We had some big eyes on it early on, and 5 years later, we're doing really well. We've got like thousands of monthly service users all over the country. We've just stepped into Northern Ireland. We're actually just in the early stages of looking at the Northeast as our next location.
okay.
And we're all over the place, and we're really proud of where we're at. And in April we turned 5, and about a year ago we appointed a load of new trustees. We had a bit of a change of the guard, and we've got some great people on the board now who are helping guide us into the next 5 years, and we're plotting out what that looks like at the moment. It's crazy, and I'm sure you'll both understand and relate to this, that 5 years ago it felt like the peak of anti-trans sentiment in the
Mm,
media, in politics. It felt like we were just at the most scary time ever, and it's crazy to me that 5 years later it still feels like we're not at the peak.
that's
It
worse. Yeah.
it just gets worse and worse and worse, and especially with what's happening across the Atlantic at the moment, which will no doubt fuel
Yeah.
the debate fodder in this country as it tends to do. I don't think that there's ever been a time that a charity's with its the sole mission of joy has been more needed, and so we're really pleased to be able to provide that to the people that use the services.
Yeah. That's brilliant. So, let's just do some admin then. So notaphase.org is the charity you're talking about, and your site for underwear is zoa.shop.
That's the one.
Fantastic. You're a force for good, Danielle. It's been an absolute joy to meet you today, and thanks for spending time with us. It's been absolutely brilliant. I'm just being respectful of your time because I could talk to you all night, so I better not. Especially otherwise, if the dog moves from the chair leg onto your leg, that would be awkward.
Well, it's been a real pleasure getting to chat to you, and hopefully it won't be the last time.
I hope not. You take care.